Hello and welcome to the Football Monarchy podcast. I am Simon Doyle. It is March 9th, Tuesday. Taking a look back at the football over the weekend, a few big games on the Monday as well, which is why I left it till now. Only one place to start though, which was Sunday's Manchester derby, finishing Manchester City 0, Manchester United 2. As a Manchester United fan myself, obviously anytime you play one of your biggest rivals, City, Liverpool, it's a fantastic occasion when you win. City had gone on a 21 game winning streak before this, and United were unbeaten in 21 away games in the Premier League. I'm not surprised that Manchester United won this game. Even though City were clear favourites, because it is typical of this United team to be able to win these games, even though we hadn't been doing it too much this season. It isn't a surprise that we're able to shut down City and counter them and do it well. We've done it many times to them now with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge, against Pep Guardiola's City. Ole clearly is able to analyse Pep's tactics, you should say, and come up with a way to counter them, and he's done it numerous times now. I think that's 4 times he's beaten them. Obviously, in that time, City have got a couple over us as well. It's not like we beat them every time we play them, but more often than not, Solskjaer is able to come up with a game plan that thwarts City and that they aren't easily able to overcome, and this is exactly what happened again. It's not a fluke when it happens this often. I think a lot of people like to talk about some Ole's biggest wins with a bit of an element of luck attached. It's not luck when you do it this many times. It isn't. You do it once or twice, yeah, it can be put down to luck, but 4 times he's done this now to Pep Guardiola's Man City. We played them earlier in the season. It was a very boring 0-0 draw in which we were happy to get the draw, and so were they. Let's not forget that. They played with a fairly defensive mindset as well. They then beat us in the Cup 2-0 at Old Trafford in the League Cup semi-final. But again, in that game, both goals came from set pieces. They didn't carve us open in open play. And that's again down to the way that Ole is able to counter what City do. Obviously, you need good players to do it. I'm not saying if you just take the blueprint that Ole uses and use it with any team, it's going to work. You need certain individuals to be doing jobs that maybe only they can do. For example, the way Aaron Wan-Bissaka is able to shut down Raheem Sterling time and time again. The defensive job that Fred and McTominay can do in midfield. The way we can get up the pitch and transition with the forwards that we have. But you have to say that Ole has again shown that he can look at one of the best tactical minds of the last decade to 2 of coaching in Pep Guardiola, and he can thwart him time and time again. He can come up with a plan that negates what they do well and pressures their weak spots in defence. We saw João Cancelo in great form for Manchester City this season, particularly the last 2 to 3 months, playing in that inverted fullback role that Pep likes to do. He's done it with Fabian Delph before. He's done it with Philipp Lahm at Bayern Munich. The difference is with Cancelo, I think Cancelo is the most attack-minded and most creative of any of those players that he's used in this role, and he's really shone in that role this season and created a lot of chances, as well as grabbing a couple of goals for himself, which has made him look like this, elite creative fullback, which he is. But he's never been particularly strong in the defensive side of things. He's decent, he's very capable, obviously. You don't get to the level he's at without being capable, but he's not Kyle Walker, let's say. In the defensive side of things, and United picked on him. They really did pick on him in this game, time and time again. When we look to play the ball in transition, we went down the left-hand side, which was because Cancelo was playing right back for City, so he would tuck in from right back, which is obviously our left, and we went down the left in transition quite a bit, looking for Marcus Rashford to get on the end of things. The second goal also was made from Cancelo committing too late to try and get the ball ahead of Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw takes one touch past him and takes him out of the game, and Luke Shaw does brilliantly from there to run on and eventually score the second goal. But the tactical plan that Ole came up with obviously targeted Cancelo, and they did it extremely well. There was a piece in The Athletic written by Michael Cox yesterday, which I saw, which was very good, pointing out how Ole used McTominay and Fred to essentially man-mark City's two attacking midfielders, Gundogan and De Bruyne. Seems like a straightforward, simple concept, but Jose Mourinho, for example, will also try this when he comes up against City, but he'll almost ask those defensive midfielders to just fill in to the back four to essentially make a back six, whereas, as Michael Cox pointed out, Fred and McTominay never got drawn into falling into a back six. They might do it temporarily for a second, but they would always then come back out to make sure that they were controlling the space in front of the back four and kind of in between fullback and centre back. And there was nobody for City really occupying the space just centrally between Lindelof and Maguire. Jesus was there. He wasn't dropping off a whole lot to try and connect things, and when he did, either Lindelof and Maguire were able to just follow him and marshal him quite well. He didn't have a lot of joy against either of them. And as well as that, the three in front of Fred and McTominay, so that's Fernandes, James and Rashford, would be quite narrow. So McTominay and Fred might be quite wide at times because they're man-marking the attacking midfielders, but the other three would go quite narrow, blocking the access for the centre-backs and the defensive midfielders to play through, which shoved them out wide and shoved them into 1v1 situations, which City typically like to do. They like to get Mahrez and Sterling in 1v1 situations, but Ole essentially said, go ahead, you can have those 1v1 situations because I believe in Luke Shaw and particularly Aaron Wan-Bissaka's defensive ability to thwart those 1v1s, and they did for the most part. I think Mahrez had a bit of success at times against Luke Shaw, but Wan-Bissaka had another very comfortable game against Sterling. It looks comfortable, obviously it's not. He's putting in a lot of hard work and it must be very mentally tiring to keep that up for 90 minutes, but he makes it look comfortable, Wan-Bissaka, because he does it so well. And then of course on the counter, United do what United are arguably the best in Europe at the moment at doing, those coordinated counter-attacks, which I was a bit disappointed in a little bit, to be quite honest. There was a few that fell apart that I thought shouldn't, just poor decision making or poor execution of passes, mostly from Bruno Fernandes. I thought he was quite culpable yesterday for that, and there was really a couple of situations that we could have made even more chances from. If you look at the XG for the game, I can't remember the exact figures, but United were almost a full goal ahead. It was 2 point something to 1 point something for City, which is I don't know if there's another team this season. That's maybe when Leicester beat them, but you'd be hard pressed to find another team this season that has outdone City in terms of expected goals in a game, and United did that on Sunday, and they did it very, very well. Martial was culpable for missing another couple of chances. One was very clear. He should have made it 3-0 when he was 1-on-1 with the keeper. But having said that, I was very impressed with Martial's overall performance. I thought he did what we've been crying out for him to do for a while, which is, yes, okay, your confidence is down. Yes, okay, you're not finishing, and we saw examples of that yesterday. But work hard. Just graft, put in a shift for the team, occupy the centre-backs if you can, and make it harder for the opposition to just take the ball back when we're trying to transition forward. And I thought he did that quite well yesterday. Martial, he was holding the ball off, which is not easy to do, particularly against Ruben Diaz. He's a big, strong centre-back who is physically very capable. And Martial, I thought, handled him quite well yesterday. I was quite impressed to see that. It's something that we would expect from Cavani, but we don't normally see from Martial. And was happy to see him contribute that to the team, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do that going forward, whether or not he's scoring goals. I just want to see him do that from now until the end of the season when he plays. Make it hard for the centre-backs. Make it easier for your team to hit the ball up to you, for you to hold the ball up, and them to then have the time to get forward and support you. Because he's not a typical hold-up man, Martial. But he's not small. I think he's 5'11", Martial. He has a little bit of a frame. Like he there's no reason he should be bullied off the ball. He's not a very slight man. And he absolutely has the ball control ability. That's arguably his greatest asset. He has that ability to be able to hold the ball up, keep it away from opponents' centre halves, and bring his teammates into play. So there's no reason we shouldn't be able to see that from him from now to the end of the season. Just do that. If you're not scoring goals, your confidence is down, your finishing is off, okay, but just do that for the team and let other people score the goals. And eventually the goals will come back. But what we were seeing for so long was him not doing either. Not scoring goals, but also not working hard and looking kind of down on himself. And his body language looked very negative. Maybe it's just him. He often seems to carry himself in that way, but it's not acceptable to keep showing up like that on the pitch. And Sunday, sorry, not yesterday, was a nice change of pace, but we need to see more of it. We need to see it consistently for a long run of games now from Martial. I would say from now to the end of the season, I want to see almost every time he plays, you're either the man that's working hard and holding the ball up and bring others into play, or you're scoring all the goals, or you're doing both, because I think you can do both. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to demand both from him. He's not a young player anymore, Martial. I think he's 25 now. So the time of waiting for him to mature is gone. This is his time to step up. So happy with his performance. Very happy with Luke Shaw's performance. Obviously, he was a standout player. It was a superb second goal that he got. Henderson helps with the throw. It's a very good throw. It's accurate, but it's very firm. So any one touch from Shaw can take it 5 to 10 yards in another direction, which can obviously be a bad thing too if he makes the wrong touch. But Shaw made the perfect touch. Cancelo, like I said, made the mistake of he got lured in too late to try and beat Shaw to the ball. He should have realised earlier he wasn't going to and bought himself some space. But he didn't. He committed. Shaw took it past him, took him out of the game. Quickly took De Bruyne out of the game, which is obviously no surprise. De Bruyne shouldn't be catching Shaw when he's going a full sprint. And played the 1-2 with Marcus Rashford. City were very disorganised from United playing around their press with essentially a throw from a keeper to the fullback and one touch from the fullback, and United were in. Very efficient play from United to get out, but also exposed the gaps in the Manchester City system, which is if you can get through that press pretty quickly and efficiently, that is where their issues lie, because they don't have the immediate defensive organisation that most other teams will play with, because they're very, very rarely in those situations. And United took full advantage of that. And it was an excellent finish from Luke Shaw. I think he purposely disguised the shot and looked to hit it through the legs. I think it went through Rodri's legs. I don't think he was particularly looking to nutmeg someone, but he's looking for the gap and he found it. So, superb goal. Superb win. Very impressed with the attitude, particularly in the first 15 to 20 minutes. I thought United were superb. Backed off a bit from then. Solskjaer said in the post-match, and I think this is spot on, that United started to play the result instead of the game. And what he means by that is we started to play as if we had a 1-0 lead to lose, which obviously we did, but you don't do that 15-20 minutes into a game of this magnitude. You have to keep trying to keep on the front foot. There's too much time, and they came out in the second half more akin to how they started the first half, and that was a big positive change. it led to the second goal. And then it wasn't long before we were kind of falling back a bit, but we did keep looking to pick City off in the counter-attack, and like I said, there was a few moments that were a bit frustrating. We did end up creating a couple other chances. Like I said, Martial had those 2 chances after it was 2-0. But there was a few other times where particularly Bruno, I thought, was at fault for a sloppy pass or a bad decision, which broke down a promising counter-attacking situation. But anyway, not to complain, because a 2-0 win away to City is a fantastic result. Doesn't really change anything in the grand scheme of things. So it's hard to get too excited about it, because the title race is obviously over. But hopefully, as I was saying last week, United should be looking to finish comfortably second, not just edge into second, finish comfortably second, and to close that gap as much as possible on City. And it might seem a bit futile, and it might seem a bit, something that's hard for the players to be motivated by. But it really will make a difference if we can go into next season having finished within 7 to 10 points of City rather than 15 to 20 even, because that's still possible too. If the gap is that big, we're going into another season where we're going, okay, we've got to make up 15 to 20 points. That's a lot. If it's more like 7, maybe to as far as 10, that's much more achievable. That's 3 to 4 games in a difference. That's attainable. But if it's too big, if it's going to be a case of a 7 or 8 game swing, that's a lot to make up in one season, no matter who you buy in the summer. So United they really should be looking to close that gap and finish a comfortable second, and just push City as far as they can. If City can't win the league until the second last or the third last weekend, it's a different feel than if they win it with 5-6 games to play. It really is. It will be a completely different feel for the United squad if they do push City that far and they finish comfortably in second, and then they can look to the summer and think, okay, we get back and get our I know the Euros obviously is gonna it's gonna change the way preseason would normally work, but if we get the proper preseason in, you get the proper signings in, the proper additions that make a real difference, 3 or 4, and then you go into the next season with the confidence that you can win the league. If those things don't happen, like I said, if it's a too big a gap, we don't get the right signings, it's going to be more of the same. It's going to be more of the exact same. So there's a lot still to play for United in the run-in. But in terms of the title race, this result doesn't make a difference, because City would need a monumental collapse. I think in their last 10 games they'd need to lose about 4, and that's United also having to win all their games, which is not going to happen. So, but yeah, focus should shift onto obviously the cups, but also keeping that pressure on in the league and keeping the form up. We can't slip into the form that we've been in recent games again. So it's Milan on Thursday for United in the Europa League. City, I think, play this week as well in their second leg against Borussia and Mönchengladbach. Or that might be next week. I apologise, I can't remember. Yes, sorry, it's next week. This week, I think they play another Premier League game. I believe they play Southampton, which I don't think is a make-up game. I think it's a game that's happening because of future commitments, because City are in the League Cup the League Cup final and the FA Cup quarterfinals. So I think it's a game that's been brought forward, if memory serves me right. So City are playing Southampton midweek in the league, having come off a loss. I mean, we expect City to beat everybody these days. Southampton have just got back to winning ways in the weekend. Can they make it difficult for City? Yes. This game finished 1-0 in the reverse fixture. And Southampton did make it tough for City, but City were not in great form at the time, so we'll see. It's Wouldn't surprise anyone if City just go and win 3-4, 5-0. But Southampton could give them a rough time, particularly physically. So we'll see how they respond. But yeah, I'll move on to the other biggest story from Sunday, which we would have to say is Fulham's 1-0 win over Liverpool. A superb performance from Fulham, who have consistently been playing very well for a few months now. Scott Parker's really getting the most out of that team. I think they're now level on points with Brighton at the bottom. They're still in 18th place, but they look ever more likely to get out, Fulham. They're in better form, and they're generally just in being more competitive, I would say, game to game, consistently, than any other team down there in the last 2 to 3 months. Even when they don't win, Fulham, it's been tight. They haven't been blown away any time in any game recently. And yeah, it was a huge win. Again, people are quite shocked. Is it a shock when the team who lost, Liverpool, had lost their previous 5 games at home? It's clearly a big problems there. Not so much of a shock, like I said, considering how good Fulham have been as well. But either way, it's a huge result for Fulham. It's a huge result in the relegation battle. They're looking ever more likely. I think momentum is a huge thing in football. Just mentality-wise, Fulham are on the rise. That result would have given them a huge boost. They've now caught up, like I said, to Brighton on points. Whereas Brighton and the other couple of teams just above them are either indifferent or on a negative trend. And it can be very hard to turn those trends around. Brighton, I feel for a bit because I watch them most weeks now. They're a very entertaining team to watch. They are very, very well organised. They don't play like a team down the bottom. They like to keep the ball. They create chances like a bigger team would, and trying to hold possession high up the pitch and counter press and keep the ball in those areas. And they do it with, a back four who are typically built for a team that's playing, a low block 4-4-2 and defend the crosses kind of team. They're all 6 foot plus. All very dominant in the air, but Graham Potter has got them playing good football on the floor as well, and they seem to make again in this Leicester game, they seem to make chance after chance in most games, and not be able to put it away. Adam Lallana scored a fantastic goal. They did have a second one in the net via Mopai, but it was disallowed rightly for offside. But for me, I did say it a few weeks ago, and it still stands, that they just don't have someone who's consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. The few seasons where they were in these relegation battles but stayed up, they at least had someone like whose name I've forgotten, the striker Glenn Murray, who was, quite old-fashioned, a typical big number 9, but he would get double digits in goals from them every season, and that seemed to be enough to just edge some games and got them enough points to stay up. And they don't really have anybody like that at the moment. They don't have anyone who they rely on to just score the odd goal that wins them a game or gets them a point. I really think everything's falling down on that, because I think everything else is good. Everything else is very good for Brighton. And if they had a consistent goal scorer, I don't think they'd just be safe. I think they could be arguably in mid-table. It's a problem for most teams down there. I said that Newcastle's Callum Wilson was the only man really down there in any of those teams who you could rely on to consistently score goals, and I thought that would keep Newcastle safe. He's obviously gotten an injury, which means Newcastle are playing without him, and all of a sudden Newcastle are suddenly looking very close to the relegation zone. They're looking like they might fall into that fight. Well, they technically are in that fight already. Having said that, I also made the same accusation about Fulham. Now, they did bring in Josh Maja from Bordeaux. He had previously been at Sunderland. He's a very talented young player. I do think he makes a bit of a difference for them. I think he leads the line well. He's a focal point for them that they didn't really have before. They were chopping and changing with different personnel, and nobody was really doing the job that Scott Parker needed. So I think Josh Maja, even though he might not be the man to get the goals, is doing a vital job for Fulham in that front line. And they're getting goals from other sources. Sometimes it can work like that. Lamina obviously got the winner in this game. Ademola Lookman's got the winner a couple of times. So things are looking bright for Fulham. I still have my doubts as to whether they'll win enough games to really keep them up, and I still think I see a lot of positive things from Brighton that could still be enough to keep them out of danger. It could also be that both those teams survive, and it could be Newcastle, possibly Burnley, and you could mention one or two other teams who could possibly fall into the 18th spot rather than Fulham or Brighton. It would take a lot of games swinging in the right direction in the last 10 games, I think, for that to happen, but it is possible. West Brom and Sheffield United look like they're done for sure. But nevertheless, a huge win for Fulham. Liverpool, their problems continue. It just looks like a massive physical drop-off from Liverpool. Huge. Their game was built on intensity. Even Jurgen Klopp's assistant, Pep Linders, summed up their philosophy as intensity. Everything we do is intensity. And that intensity is gone. Very hard to bring back when you lose it. A lot of people made complaints about Klopp's team selection for this game. He left out a number of big players. But you'd have to say, A, the big players that you expect to see play haven't been doing it either. B, if the problem is a lack of intensity, then bringing in players who haven't been in the team week in, week out for the last few years could aid the team, and you could see a better physical output. We didn't. That's not what we saw from Liverpool on the weekend. Could it just be that the team was so new, essentially, that there was a lack of cohesion? But there's definitely a huge drop off in the physical output of the team, which is always bound to happen after a few years of playing as intensely as they did, without really changing the strongest 11 week to week. Yes, some players came in and out, but mostly you knew what the best team was and the players that played most minutes throughout the season, and who they were going to be. There's a lot to be said for what has changed. What has changed has not only led to the physical drop off in intensity, but also the injuries, because they are definitely related. There's no way that the drop off has happened simultaneously at the same time as so many injuries have occurred. There's a relationship there between the breakdown of some players physically and the drop off in intensity in the team as a whole. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if you didn't get an injury that you're fine, because it's like I was saying, it's a drop off is to be expected. So yeah, there's definitely something amiss, something that's different this year than has been in previous years with regards to their physicality. So that bears a big question mark as to how do they turn it around then. Can they bring it back for the odd occasion and win the odd game? They beat Leipzig last time out, for example, and they play them again this week. When they play Leipzig again, can the energy come back because it's a European last 16 tie and they've every chance of winning the competition still, whereas the Premier League title is gone, for example? is a big question mark there. But it is a bit baffling to see a team that won the league so convincingly last season look nowhere near finishing in the Champions League spot this season. That's a huge drop off. So, yeah, I'm not sure I can see them properly arresting this form between now and the end of the season and getting back to any kind of recognisable consistency. So, yeah, it's a big question mark as to how low can they go this season. How bad can it get? Obviously, they're not going to get relegated or anything like that. They're already out of the FA Cup. They're out of the League Cup. The Champions League is really all they have left to play for. They have a lead over Leipzig, which could be overturned. I still think Liverpool will be strong enough to get through, but who do they play in the next round? I think there's a number of teams that, if they came up against them, I just couldn't see how they could beat them over two legs. Just with the way that they're playing, not because they're incapable, but because of the, like I was saying, the lack of physical output per 90 minutes from them at the moment. So, yeah, another loss for Liverpool. It's not really a surprise anymore. They need to find some solution to arresting the form and turning it around. Elsewhere, Chelsea beat Everton fairly comfortably on Monday night, 2-0. A very good performance from Chelsea. I thought Everton looked a bit lackluster. They looked like they were missing something. A few players were out injured. They had no Doucouré, no James Rodriguez, no Seamus Coleman. Still enough quality there to make a difference, but they didn't seem to have the cohesion to stop what this Chelsea team like to do. Chelsea had the most possession. They also very quickly in transition got in behind Everton's line. Timo Werner was very good at exposing it. Kai Havertz was also interchanging with him and sometimes trying to get behind, but mostly the one dropping deep because he's not as fast as Timo Werner, but he's faster than he looks, Kai Havertz, and did get him behind a few times. But I spoke previously about how Chelsea essentially play with a front five almost, with the wing backs when they come up very high, and then you've got the two attacking midfielders in behind the striker. And if you look at the first goal, the Everton defensive midfield is missing, but they brilliantly occupy the back four with the striker on one of the centre backs, one attacking midfielder on the other centre back, and then the other attacking midfielder, Kai Havertz, occupying the right back, which is Mason Holgate, which means the left wing back coming up the pitch, Marcos Alonso, had to be tracked by Alex Iwobi. So Chelsea are essentially pulling the right wingers all the way of Everton, or both wingers of Everton all the way back as fullbacks essentially, which left for a flat line along the defence, and Chelsea were very easily able to play around that with some good one-touch passing. Alonso gets into a brilliant position and fires it across to Havertz, whose shot, he hits quick, is going wide, bounces off Godfrey and goes in, but still a very good move from Chelsea and a deserved goal. Everton had moments to get back into it. Richarlison was maybe culpable of wasting a couple of half chances, but overall they didn't really look like they were going to score. Chelsea did look fairly comfortable overall and deserved their win 2-0, and they're looking pretty ominous, having beaten Liverpool as well midweek 1-0 at Anfield, convincingly so. They are looking pretty ominous and looking like they're gonna, it's looking hard now to see past Chelsea, Leicester and United for second, third and fourth. What order those three will finish in is still up for debate, but doesn't look like anyone from outside the top four currently is going to be capable of catching Chelsea, Leicester or Man United at the moment, with about 10-11 games to be played now for all teams. So yeah, it's no big surprise. I mean, Everton and West Ham did very well to be where they were for so long, particularly particularly West Ham. Nobody was expecting that of them. Everton, will they be happy with the Europa League spot? It probably wasn't their number one aim, but should they expect to be better than the Chelsea, Leicester and two Manchester clubs in the top four? No, not after just one full season with Ancelotti now. And even though they did bring in some good players, it's not enough to just turn it around in one summer. If they have another positive summer like they did last summer, get in the right players, and Ancelotti obviously stays and goes again for next season, then they could have a chance. But it really all comes down to recruitment. I think I say this about every team, but it really is so important, because if you buy a couple of really good players in the summer, but your 2 or 3 closest rivals buy 3 or 4 really good players, and they all fit in and they're hitting the ground running, all of a sudden your good summer looks average, and your team might look a bit average in comparison to theirs in the following season. So recruitment is vital for any team to push on again in the Premier League, as well as retaining your own good players. There are a number of big clubs now who are going to be knocking on the door at Everton for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison. I would say, even though he's getting on in years, Luca Digne as well. He's one of the best left backs in the league, easily. At the back, Mason Holgate and Ben Godfrey are going to be hot property, because they're two of the best English centre-backs of their generation, both in their very early 20s. So yeah, will Everton be able to keep hold of all those players, as well as add the maybe up to 3 to 4 players, like good quality signings that they need to make the difference? It's a lot to ask. I think it's possible, but it's a lot to ask. So we'll see what happens in the summer for them. But a solid Europa League finish, either 5th or 6th now, would be good for Everton, but it's still going to be tight to even do that, because like I said, West Ham are in that mix, Liverpool are obviously in that mix, Tottenham are in that mix. They've won 2 games now back to back, a 1-0 win over Fulham and a 4-1 win over Crystal Palace, which was very impressive on the weekend. Wouldn't get too giddy about Spurs yet, because Jose Mourinho has not proven that they can really go on an impressive winning run as of yet. It could happen now. It's possible. Gareth Bale has been in the best form since he's come back, along with a very informed Harry Kane, and Heung-min Son has obviously been pretty much himself all season. He's had some dips, but he's also been on his own a lot of the time, because Harry Kane missed time through injury and Gareth Bale wasn't playing a lot. So with that front 3 firing, it's very possible that Spurs could go on a winning run. They could. So we'll see what happens with them. But the competition just for Europa League spots is going to be very tough, never mind the top 4. So we'll see what happens. But a good win for Chelsea. Not the worst result for Everton, obviously, but they'll need to bounce back quick. West Ham as well, speaking of them, they beat Leeds 2-0. They were a bit more fortunate in their 2-0 win than Chelsea were. Have to touch on VAR again, which I am loath to do, but the offside, so Leeds score within, I think it's within the first 5, maybe 10 minutes. They score a goal, and Helder Costa is ruled offside. Helder Costa eventually is the assister. He plays the ball back for I think it was Dallas to finish, or was it Bamford? I can't remember. No, Tyler Roberts. And I have a huge problem with these offside calls. They're saying his kneecap is just offside, and they bring this, I don't even know what to call it. They've got a line running perfectly vertically up the pitch, a line running perfectly horizontal across the pitch. They're crossing each other, and then where they meet, there's a red line that goes straight up. So they're using this to determine what elevated parts of the body, so those that aren't on the ground, where are they exactly? The problem is they're doing this from a camera angle that is horizontal, so you can get the horizontal line perfect, no problem. But they're not getting the vertical line the line that's running up and down the pitch from goalpost to goalpost. They're not putting that one. How do they know where that one should be exactly? We're not seeing. Maybe they're seeing it in the VAR room. If they are, we should be seeing it too, so we can understand, and we're not all sitting at home going, how the hell do they know if that's offside or not? It doesn't look like that line is in the right position to me. And I tweeted this out yesterday and showed a picture of it, as you can see them drawing the line. And I've commented on this before, that they just seem to be drawing these lines arbitrarily. They're just deciding, okay, you can see from the horizontal camera angle exactly where that horizontal line should be, no problem. How do they decide where that vertical line should be? It looks like they're guessing. It really does look like they're guessing, because the one I saw yesterday looks like it's more in line with Costa's left toe than his right knee, which is what they said was offside. How are they just drawing that line and thinking, yeah, that's offside? And if their answer is, and I've heard some people say this about the VAR, well, they have to draw it somewhere, then if they're just picking based on a relative educated guess, that's not good enough to be called offside. That is not offside. Stop calling these things offside. It is absolutely ridiculous. There is not a person in the world who loves football who wants to see those called offside. It is absolutely ludicrous. Nobody enjoys watching these offside calls at all. Everyone's just getting pissed off with it, and rightfully so, because you're ruling out perfectly good goals based on the fact that your technology is somewhat accurate and says that his kneecap might be a little bit ahead. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just draw the line, that horizontal line, where the player's feet are. And if the goal scorers, or in this case the assister, if his feet are not offside, or they're not ahead of the opponent's feet, then it's not offside. Just leave it as that. You're not getting an advantage because your knee is pointed in a certain direction. You're not. It's absolutely ridiculous. Before, there used to be such thing as benefit of the doubt for the striker. That's far and long gone at this stage. There was a reason it was there. It's because people didn't want to see goals ruled out that should have been goals. And yes, we had some goals that were given that shouldn't have been, and those today would be would be caught with VAR if it's used properly. But in general, people would rather see the odd goal that was allowed that maybe shouldn't have been than so many goals that should be that aren't allowed. Nobody who enjoys football wants to see more goals ruled out. I really think they need to revise how they use the VAR, the technology. I've also heard some people say that, of course, people are saying, well, don't get angry at the technology. It's the referees using it. Of course it is. Nobody's angry at cameras. I mean, you might be, but it's a bit weird. Why would you be angry at more camera angles being available? That's all VAR is. And then somebody in a office somewhere looking at them and communicating with the referee. That's what the technology is. Nobody's angry at the technology. People are angry at how it's being used. And it's being used really poorly in the Premier League. But anyway, that goal gets ruled out. West Ham go up the other end and they score. They score two. They get another one on a set piece. Leeds are quite susceptible from set pieces all season. They have been. But I didn't think it was a bad performance from Leeds personally. I saw a lot to be happy about in terms of their performance. They created a good few chances. I don't have the XG stats myself, but they created a good few chances. I thought Rodrigo and Rafinha were very unlucky in the second half, both with some very good chances. Patrick Bamford had a great chance that he somehow missed. He was only 6 yards out. He should have scored and he somehow skied it. It was a bit lazy from him, to be honest. He didn't shift his standing foot enough to be able to catch the ball at the proper angle. And it went over the bar, and it was a really bad miss. And that was a late one. Like, just because they scored, that doesn't mean the result would have changed. There would have been very little time left, but it just kind of summed up the night for Leeds. But I didn't think it was I think 2-0 flattered West Ham a bit, to be honest. I think maybe they were worth the win, but if they were, it was only by the odd goal. I thought Leeds were worth a draw the way the game went. It wasn't to be. But this is what we can expect from Leeds. They are a mid-table side. They will have mid-table form. They were very good last week against Southampton. They were poor against Villa on the weekend. They only lost that by a goal. I thought they improved their performance last night, but lost 2-0. Some of that was down to VAR. Some of it down to poor finishing. And they're just not very good at defending set pieces. They're really not very good at it at all. And sorry, the other goal was a penalty. Jesse Lingard was taken down. I believe I have that right. And he scored the penalty as well. The keeper actually saved it, but Lingard got the follow-up. Lingard's been doing great for West Ham. It's a joy to see as a United fan, because I've been someone who defended him for a long time as he played for United, and defended his selection, defended his usefulness and his role in the team. For me, he was very criminally underrated while he played for us, particularly under Mourinho. I thought he was arguably our best player in terms of consistency over Mourinho's time. And I think he has a lot to offer, a lot that people had written off. So it's good to see him getting back to some really good form and showing what he's worth. Because he is on form. He is a very, very good player, Jesse Lingard. And I mean a player capable of starting for teams who play in the Champions League. And I don't mean Grasshoppers or FC Basel. I mean Premier League, La Liga, Serie, Bundesliga teams. I think he's more than capable of getting himself into those starting 11s. So good to see him doing well. Speaking of the Bundesliga, Der Klassiker also occurred this Saturday. Bayern Munich against Borussia Dortmund. It finished 4-2 to Bayern Munich. Dortmund took a 2-goal lead. 2 very good goals from Erling Haaland. Really impressive. Like everybody is, but this kid just gets better every time I see him. His first goal is a nothing chance. He makes it from nowhere. He just shifts the ball into his left foot and strikes it from outside the box, puts it through the defender's legs, right into the far bottom corner, giving the goalkeeper no chance. The second goal was another very good team goal. Got to the byline. He made a quick darting run to the front post. When he makes those runs, he's almost impossible to stop. He's like a boulder, running towards the ball, and of course meets the ball perfectly and finishes it near post to make it 2-0. I didn't get to see the game myself, but from what I understand, Dortmund, the 2-0 lead flattered them a little bit, and Bayern always looked like working their way back into it. And sure enough, they were level at half-time. Robert Lewandowski getting a very good finish from a cross, or was it through a ball? I can't remember now. But then getting a penalty, a deserved penalty. Kingsley Coman was brought down. Lewandowski dispatches the penalty. They got a third, Bayern, towards the end. They had to wait until I think it was the 85th, 86th minute. But Leon Goretzka got himself into the box and dispatched a perfect first touch finish after the ball had bobbled around a bit in the box to put Bayern 3-2 up. And then Lewandowski got his hat-trick right towards the end, with a very similar goal to Haaland's first, in which he was outside the box, shifts it onto his right foot and dispatches it into the far bottom corner. It's expert finishing. Lewandowski is arguably the greatest number 9 in the world right now. I hesitate to say finisher, because of course people would rightfully bring up Ronaldo and Messi, who are still as deadly as they've ever been, you'd have to say. But he's certainly in the conversation, Lewandowski, along with Harry Kane, Erling Haaland. But for me, Lewandowski, if you're talking about a number 9 who just guarantees you goals from almost anywhere within a 20-yard perimeter of the goal, it's Robert Lewandowski. The guy is deadly. His movement in and around the box and is just superb. He will find space anywhere against any defense, and when he gets it, he's just so efficient with his finishing. I would argue he might be the most efficient of all those finishers I just named. I don't have the stats on hand, but that's just what I see with the naked eye. So that Dortmund were already really out of the title race, but that absolutely confirmed it. I think they lie in 6th still, so they've got work just to get themselves back into the Champions League. RB Leipzig went and did their business away to Freiburg 3-0. Some very good goals in this game as well. I was very impressed with some of the football that Leipzig played. And they are the closest challengers to Bayern Munich and the only ones that can topple them. But I still don't see that happening. I think Bayern, they've not even been great this season, and they still have a 2-point lead at the top of the table. They would just need to really turn it on for a few games to see themselves clear, I think. I'm not sure if they have to play each other again or if they've already played each other twice. I hope they do, and I hope it's towards the end of the season, because that could be a huge game, but I'm not sure. But yeah, fully expect Bayern to still do the business and win the league again this season. But it would be nice from a neutral point of view to see Leipzig do it, because I think the Bundesliga could be a fantastic league if Leipzig, Dortmund, they're probably the only two really capable, possibly Mönchengladbach, could win the league. I know Bayer Leverkusen are always in the picture. They're in and around there, but surprisingly, I found this out pretty recently. Bayer Leverkusen have never won a Bundesliga title in their history, ever, which shocked me. Because they seem like one of the bigger teams in Germany, but they've never won the league, ever. So, but there's a number of good teams with very good players there, like good, strong clubs that could make the Bundesliga much more engaging, much more tantalizing to watch and to pay attention to. But I think people are just, a little bit tired of just seeing Bayern win every year. So I hope that Leipzig can do it for that sake, but I doubt it. Another league in which we see absolute dominance is in Spain, where obviously Barcelona and Real Madrid win the league every year, pretty much. Atletico Madrid sit top of the table. They had a 10-point lead at one time that's been cut down to about, I think, 3 points now, or maybe 2, but a game in hand for Atleti. They faced Real Madrid in the Madrid derby this weekend and it finished 1-1. Atleti started the game quite well. They took a deserved early lead through Luis Suarez with a superb finish. I think they deservedly led at half time, but Real Madrid were coming back into it a bit more. The second half, I was kind of watching it, but it started as United were starting their game against City. I was obviously paying more attention to that, but I did have the game on to the side, just keeping an eye on it, and it seemed like Atleti just kept getting a bit more negative as the game went on, and trying to hold on to their 1-0 lead instead of trying to improve it. And Real Madrid just kept coming forward. Benzema looked very lively, and eventually Benzema scored, and Real Madrid got away with a deserved draw in the end, you'd have to say. But Atleti, to me, looked, again, I accused them of this after the Chelsea loss, they looked like a team again caught between what they've become this year and what they used to be, and they don't look too sure which one they're supposed to be. I said again after that Chelsea game that I think they should just press forward with their newer identity of trying to keep hold of the ball more, play a more possession-based game. It's what got them to that 10-point lead in La Liga in the first place. But they don't seem sure of themselves. And in this game, they dropped off more and more and looked to be the old Atleti and just kind of hunker down and hold on to their lead. And they eventually broke because they aren't that team anymore. So I was disappointed in them in that sense, and I'd hate to see them lose this league title now because of this. I think they need to try and regroup and press forward with the way they were playing earlier on in this season. And I still think the league title will be theirs because Barcelona and Real Madrid aren't able to keep up with Atleti, I think, at the moment when Atleti play like that. Barcelona have turned their form around recently and look pretty good. But I would still take the Atletico Madrid that we saw even just up to a month ago, over this Barcelona team or over this Real Madrid team. So hopefully they can turn it back around and get back to that kind of form, refocus and go again. But it's just waning away, and I talked about momentum earlier being a huge thing, and Atleti's is going down. Real Madrid's and Barcelona's, particularly Barcelona's, is going back up. And we see this time and time again in seasons where big teams have a slow start, but they start to get their momentum later on, and the team that was doing well loses their momentum, and all of a sudden the momentum will win out, the team with the more momentum, and at the moment it's not Atletico Madrid. So I hope they can refine that momentum before too long, because they need to turn it around quick. We have a different sort of title race over in Italy, where the two Milan clubs have been leading for most of the season. Juve, the perennial winners of the last decade, have had a very indifferent season under Andrea Pirlo. I talked about before how they're trying to change their style. They're trying to become a much more progressive and possession-based team. And there was always likely that they were going to get outdone by teams that were a little more organised and firm in their identity, which I think Inter are under Conte. Conte's bought a lot of players, but he's gotten this team to where he wants it to be, and it is his team now. And I do think they will go on and do the job and win the league. They beat Atalanta 1-0 last night, which is a big win. Atalanta are a very, very good team. Juve beat Lazio on the weekend 3-1, but Inter I don't think they're entertaining to watch. Conte's teams normally aren't, but they're extremely functional. Everyone knows their job down to the smallest detail, and if you don't carry it out, you get an earful from Conte and you probably get taken off. He has a huge squad. He has no problem rotating player after player if they're not doing the job. He rotates a lot from game to game to keep players fresh. Some players play all the time, but a lot of other positions are rotated. And I think they will have enough now to just go on and win the league. Milan were doing very well this year, surprisingly so. I think they were unbeaten all the way up until Inter beat them a few weeks ago. But they're just dropping off now, and it's no surprise to get a couple of injuries, and all of a sudden they start to wane, particularly to Zlatan, who's been such a leader for them. But they're a relatively young team, Milan. They wouldn't have expected to be winning the league this year. But if they can build on this, and I'll go back to the recruitment point again and get the recruitment right, which Milan have been bad at in the last decade, but they've been better at in the last couple of years. If they can get the recruitment right this summer, they could be right in the thick of a title challenge again next season. And Italy really, really needs these Milan teams back at their best. Italy is probably, after the Premier League, it's typically the most competitive league. It hasn't been in the last decade, but if you look at the number of big clubs who you could argue the case for winning the league, you look at the two Milan clubs, you look at Juve, you look at Napoli, who obviously have fallen off the last couple of years but were fantastic for a few years before that. You look at the two Rome clubs, Roma and Lazio, who do win league titles from time to time. But right there you have the makeup of a serious Big Six. And we talk about the Big Six in England all the time, but if you look across the other top nations, Italy is the next closest in terms of a serious group of big teams who can compete at the top and win league titles, and have a history of doing so. So Italy needs this. They need these clubs pushing at the top, and they need these two Milan teams doing what they're doing this year. And long may it continue, because I think we'd all love to see a very competitive and serious Serie A again. It would be great for European football to have that back. So yeah, hopefully it can continue. Hopefully we see more of this from the Milan clubs. I do think Inter will go on and win the league this year. Juve are looking more and more likely that they'll sneak back into second and get above this Milan side. They should, really, on paper. They're a much stronger team. But it's a big positive step for Milan this year. And Juve have it all to do in Europe this week. They play their second leg against Porto, having lost the first leg, so a lot to do for them still. But an impressive win on the weekend against Lazio. Lazio are a good team. I think they finished second last year. I think I could be wrong, but Lazio are a very impressive team. Fallen off a bit in form recently, but Juve it was a tight enough game, but Juve in the end made it fairly comfortable for themselves. Adrien Rabiot, if you haven't seen it, take a look at the highlights of this game. Adrien Rabiot scores an absolutely fantastic goal, and Alvaro Morata gets himself a good finish and then a penalty to make it 3. And the first goal from Lazio took the lead through Correa with an excellent goal as well. But a strong win for Juve, who I think we'll see this from them to the end of the season. They'll win some games well, but they'll drop points as well because they're just inconsistent in their new identity. They haven't really pinpointed it yet. They don't own it yet. They might never under Pirlo. It remains to be seen. He has a lot of work to do to change them from where they were to where they want to be. What Sarri started, he's kind of having to take up the mantle and push forward. I don't think he can be judged too heavily on one season. I think he needs 2 to really see if he's bringing them in the right direction. But like I said before, I think Juve are doing everything they can to build the platform for Pep Guardiola to take over. I think that is their long-term aim. But we'll see. I think they'll finish second this season, and I think Inter will do the business, and Conte will get his title, and they'll probably ask for another 10 players, and they'll say no, and then he'll get in a huff and probably leave. But we'll see. It'll be good for Inter to just win the league again and then go from there. But yeah, that's about it. There was a few other games in note over the weekend, but I'll leave it there. Champions League is back this week, right now actually. Some games are back now, some games tomorrow. Europa League on Thursday. United and Milan is the standout fixture. And then of course a full schedule of league games again from around the continent of Europe this weekend. So lots to look forward to and lots to review. So hope you all have a good week as well as a good weekend. Thank you very much for listening. If you have, I really do appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.